Hello, Internet. It's time to read the Bible. Uh, let's see here. Before we begin, my grandma is going in for follow-up surgery on Monday. So if you watch this in the brief span in between, quick prayer for her would be appreciated. It's the same surgery as before, but supposedly there's less cancer to dig out, so it should be less significant, or at least the doctor seems confident it won't be an issue. So we're not as freaked out as we were the first time. But still, she's 94, and any surgery is potentially dangerous. So just all the prayers would be appreciated. Um, Other than that, life is continuing on as it tends to do. Yeah, I think that's all as far as updates for those who are curious about my personal life. So we will continue on with reading. Uh, April 29th. We'll begin with Judges chapter 9, verse 22 to chapter 10, verse 18. I haven't done Kermit in a while, so we'll do that voice. 3 years later, God stirred up trouble between King Abimelech and the citizens of Shechem, and they revolted. In the events that followed, both Abimelech and the citizens of Shechem who aided him in butchering Gideon's 70 sons were given their just punishment for these murders. For the men of Shechem set an ambush for Abimelech along the trail at the top of the mountain. While they were waiting for him to come along, they robbed everyone else who passed that way. But someone warned Abimelech about their plot. At that time, Gaul, the son of Ebed, moved to Shechem with his brothers, and he became one of the leading citizens. During the harvest feast at Shechem that year, held at the temple of the local god, the wine flowed freely, and everyone began cursing Abimelech. "Who is Abimelech?" Gaul shouted. "And why should he be our king? Why should we be his servants? He and his friend Zebul should be our servants. Down with Abimelech! Make me your king, and you'll soon see what happens to Abimelech. I'll tell Abimelech, get up an army and come out and fight me." But when Zebul, the mayor of the city, heard what Gaul was saying, he was furious. He sent messengers to Abimelech in Arumah, telling him, "Gaul, son of Ebed, and his relatives have come to live in Shechem, and now they are arousing the city to rebellion against you. Come by night with an army and hide out in the fields, and in the morning, as soon as it is daylight, storm the city. When he and those who are with him come out against you, you can do with them as you wish." Mhm. So Abimelech and his men marched through the night and split into 4 groups, stationing themselves around the city. The next morning, as Gaul sat at the city gates, discussing various issues with the local leaders, Abimelech and his men began their march upon the city. When Gaul saw them, he exclaimed to Zebul, "Look over to that mountain! Doesn't it look like people coming down?" "No," said Zebul. "You're just seeing shadows that look like men." "No, look over there," Gaul said. "I'm sure I see people coming towards us. And look, there are others coming along the road past the oak of Menanim." Then Zebul turned on him triumphantly. "Now where's that big mouth of yours?" he demanded. "Who was it who said, 'Who is Abimelech, and why should he be our king?' The men you taunted and cursed are right outside the city. Go on out and fight." So Gaul led the men of Shechem into the battle and fought with Abimelech, but was defeated. And many of the men of Shechem were left wounded all the way to the city gate. Abimelech was living at Arumah at this time, and Zebul drove Gaul and his relatives out of Shechem and wouldn't let them live there any longer. The next day, the men of Shechem went out to battle again. However, someone had told Abimelech about their plans, so he had divided his men into 3 groups, hiding in the fields. And when the men of the city went out to attack, he and his men jumped up from their hiding places and began killing them. Abimelech stormed the city gate to keep the men of Shechem from getting back, while his other 2 groups cut them down in the fields. The battle went on all day before Abimelech finally captured the city, killed its people, and leveled it to the ground. Mhm. The people at the nearby town of Migdol saw what was happening and took refuge in the fort next to the temple of Baal-berith. When Abimelech learned of this, he led his forces to Mount Zalmon, where he began chopping a bundle of firewood and placed it upon his shoulder. "Do as I have done," he told his men. So each of them quickly cut a bundle and carried it back to town, where, following Abimelech's example, the bundles were piled against the walls of the fort and set on fire. So all the people inside died, about 1,000 men and women. Abimelech next attacked the city of Thebez and captured it. However, there was a fort inside the city, and the entire population fled into it, barricaded the gates, and climbed to the top of the roof to watch. But as Abimelech was preparing to burn it, a woman on the roof threw down a millstone. It landed on Abimelech's head, crushing his skull. That was a pretty strong throw. Millstones are historically pretty heavy. So, a crushing defeat. Now, so the young man pierced him with his sword, and he died. Oh, wait, I skipped a verse. I apologize. So, it landed on Abimelech's head, crushing his skull. "Kill me," he groaned to his youthful armor-bearer. "Never let it be said that a woman killed Abimelech." So the young man pierced him with his sword, and he died. When his men saw that he was dead, they disbanded and returned to their homes. Thus God punished both Abimelech and the men of Shechem for their sin of murdering Gideon's 70 sons. So the curse of Jotham, Gideon's son, came true. Good riddance to various bad people. After Abimelech's death, the next judge of Israel was Tola, son of Pua and grandson of Dodo. That's an unfortunate name, given our current knowledge of dodos. Anyway, he was from the tribe of Issachar, but lived in the city of Shamir in the hill country of Ephraim. He was Israel's judge for 23 years. When he died, he was buried in Shamir and was succeeded by Jair. I guess he didn't do anything. They didn't say anything. That's amusing to me. Let's try to stay focused. Okay. So he was succeeded by Jair, a man from Gilead, who judged Israel for 22 years. His 30 sons rode around together on 30 donkeys, and they owned 30 cities in the land of Gilead, which are still called the cities of Jair. When Jair died, he was burned in Camel. Again, the most interesting thing is that he had 30 kids with 30 donkeys. That's a little weird. But I guess you have to mention everybody. So, moving on. Then the people of Israel turned away from the Lord again and worshipped the heathen gods of Baal and Ashtaroth and the gods of Syria, Sidon, Moab, and Philistia. Not only this, but they no longer worship Jehovah at all. Okay, I take back what I said about the previous two. At least they kept the people in line, whatever they did. The next, so let's see how Jehovah punishes them this time, shall we? This made Jehovah very angry with his people. So he immediately permitted the Philistines and the Ammonites to begin tormenting them. Sounds about right. These attacks took place east of the Jordan River in the land of the Amorites. This is in Gilead, and also in Judah, Benjamin, and Ephraim. For the Ammonites crossed the Jordan to attack the Israelis. This went on for 18 years. Finally, the Israelis turned to Jehovah again and begged him to save them. "We have sinned against you and have forsaken you as our God and have worshipped idols," they confessed. But the Lord replied, "Didn't I save you from the Egyptians and Amorites and Ammonites and Philistines and the Sidonians, the Amalekites, and the Mennonites? Has there ever been a time when you cried out to me that I haven't rescued you? Yet you continue to abandon me and to worship other gods. So go away. I won't save you anymore. Go and cry to the new gods you have chosen. Let them save you in your hour of distress." But they pleaded with him again and said, "We have sinned. Punish us in any way you think best. Only save us once more from our enemies." Spoiler alert, it will not be once more. Then they destroyed their foreign gods and worshipped only the Lord, and he was grieved by their misery. The armies of Ammon were mobilized in Gilead at that time, preparing to attack Israel's army at Mizpah. Who will lead our forces against the Ammonites? The leaders of Gilead asked each other. Whoever volunteers shall be our king. A moment, please. He's not a frog. He's not even an official puppet, but a manufacturing. Let's see how this goes. I'll do him right here. So let's continue Luke chapter 24, verse 13 through 53. That same day, Sunday, two of Jesus' followers were walking to the village of Emmaus, 7 miles out of Jerusalem. As they walked along, they were talking of Jesus' death, when suddenly Jesus himself came along and joined them and began walking beside them. They didn't recognize him, for God kept them from it. You seem to be in deep discussion about something, he said. What are you so concerned about? They stopped short, sadness written across their faces, and one of them, Cleopas, replied, You must be the only person in Jerusalem who hasn't heard about the terrible things that happened this week. What things? Jesus asked. The things that happened to Jesus, the man from Nazareth, he said. He was a prophet who did incredible miracles and was a mighty teacher, highly regarded by both God and man. But the chief priests and our religious leaders arrested him and handed him over to the Roman government to be condemned to death. This is hard work on the art for when you've never done it, and also this is overstuffed with cotton. I'm fat, or should I say thick. Let's continue on. Where was I? Oh, yes, the Roman government condemned to death, and they crucified him. We had thought he was the glorious Messiah, that he had come to rescue Israel. And now, besides all this, which happened 3 days ago, some woman from our group of his followers were at his tomb early this morning, and came back with an amazing report that his body was missing, and they had seen some angels who were told them Jesus is alive. Some of our men ran out to see, and sure enough, Jesus' body was gone, just as women had said. A moment, let me adjust the puppet. I have a lot of cotton in between where my hand is gripping the mouth, so it is very difficult to repeatedly open and close it. Yeah. As I said, this was not initially a puppet. It just, for whatever reason, it had a hole in the bottom that didn't go to the mouth, so I had to modify it. So it's not as, well, there's less cotton, but it's still kind of awkward. You love me anyway. Yeah, I know. I know, Iggy. Alright. I'm insane if you didn't know already. Just because you talk to yourself doesn't mean you're insane. Just helps you think. Is that what we're calling it? Okay. I guess all puppets do self-deprecating humor. It does a low-hanging fruit. I don't think I'll do this again. It's too tedious. But let's continue on. Alright. Where was I? The women followers in the morning came back and made for um, his body was gone, just as the woman had said. Then Jesus said to them, You are such foolish, foolish people. You find it so hard to believe that all the prophets wrote in the scriptures. Wasn't it clearly predicted by the prophets that the Messiah would have to suffer all these things before entering his time of glory. Then Jesus quoted from the passage from the writings of the prophets, beginning in the book of Genesis and going right on through the scriptures, explaining what the passages meant and what they said about himself. By this time, they were nearing. We're just going to abandon Iggy. I'm sorry. I'm an untrained puppeteer and a poor puppet, and that is too much work. Was it spontaneous thought? And it failed. I apologize. By this time, they were nearing Emmaus at the end of the journey. Jesus would have gone on, but they begged him to stay the night with them, as it was getting late. So he went home with them. As they sat down to eat, he asked God's blessing on the food, and then took a small loaf of bread and broke it, and was passing it over to them, when suddenly it was as though their eyes were opened. They recognized him, and at that moment he disappeared. They began telling each other how their hearts had felt strangely warm as he talked with them and explained the scriptures during the walk down the road. Within the hour, they were on their way back to Jerusalem, where the 11 disciples and other followers of Jesus greeted them with these words: "The Lord has really risen. He appeared to Peter." Then the two from Emmaus told their story of how Jesus had appeared to them as they were walking along the road, and how they had recognized him as he was breaking the bread. And just as they were telling about it, Jesus himself was suddenly standing there among them and greeting them. But the whole group was terribly frightened, thinking they were seeing a ghost. "Why are you frightened?" he asked. "Why do you doubt what is really I? Look at my hands. Look at my feet. You can see that it is I myself. Touch me and make sure that I am not a ghost. For ghosts don't have bodies, as you see that I do." As he spoke, he held out his hands for them to see the marks of the nails, and showed them the wounds in his feet. Still they stood there undecided, filled with joy and doubt. Then he asked them, "Do you have anything here to eat?" They gave him a piece of broiled fish, and he ate it as they watched. Then he said, "When I was with you before, don't you remember my telling you that everything written about me by Moses and the prophets and in the Psalms must come true?" Then he opened their minds to understand at last these many scriptures, and he said, "Yes, it was written long ago that the Messiah must suffer and die and rise again from the dead on the third day, and that this message of salvation should be taken from Jerusalem to all the nations. There is forgiveness of sins for all who turn to me. You have seen these prophecies come true. And now I will send the Holy Spirit upon you, just as my Father promised. Don't begin telling others yet. Stay here in the city until the Holy Spirit comes and fills you from heaven." Then Jesus led them out along the road to Bethany, and lifting his hands to heaven, he blessed them, and then began rising into the sky and went on to heaven. And they worshipped him and returned to Jerusalem filled with mighty joy, and were continually in the temple praising God. All right, now we have a shorter bit. We're going to switch hands and try one more time to see if I can make Iggy function while doing this voice. Still has a little mouth that makes it awkward to talk, but fresh arm. We'll see how long I can do it. Psalms is only a brief one this time. Psalms 100, verses 1 through 5. "Shout with joy before the Lord, O earth. Obey him gladly. Come before him singing with joy." Try to realize what this means. The Lord is God. He made us. We are his people, the sheep of his pasture. Go through his open gates with great thanksgiving. Enter his courts with praise. Give thanks to him and bless his name. For the Lord is always good. He is always loving and kind, and his faithfulness goes on for each succeeding generation. And finally, for today, we have Proverbs chapter 14, verses 11 and 12. The work of the wicked will perish, the work of the godly will flourish. Before every man there lies a wide and pleasant road that seems right, but ends in death. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed myself and Iggy. For those curious, I based his name is based on Gabriel Iglesias, a fluffy comedian. So the Mexican voice would have been more appropriate for him. But anyway, um, thank you for listening, and as always, God bless.